Hello, everyone. I am Josh Linville, Vice President of the Fertilizer Division for StoneX. And once again, we're going solo this week. Johanna's taking some much-deserved time off. I know everybody comes on here to see and listen to her, but you just get to deal with me. I'm hoping she is back next week. But fertilizer markets, this is typically a very, very quiet period for the world. Things slow down. Buyers stop stepping into the marketplace, inventories grow, and then all of a sudden we start to see prices wane. We start to see those seasonal lows. This year has been anything but normal. First biggest news that we've been dealing with, India's big purchase tender. And if you remember, they have been working on these purchase tenders for urea since December and falling far short of their tonnage goal every single time they've come to the table. Until now, they came in with this tender with the expectation of wanting to buy 2 million ton like they did with the last tender. They received very high prices. Offers were very proud of the tons that they had to offer, but it was interesting. We saw about 4.5 million tons that were offered in total. Well, as of this morning, it sounds like that IPL, the importing company for India on this tender, has secured right around 2 million tons. It looks like they have finally hit their mark. So this doesn't mean that they don't need to still bring in more tons. We think that there's probably another tender out in the horizon, but this is going to give them a lot of breathing room. This should give them a chance to sit back and wait. And even more exciting for them, something I think that helped out tremendously, was China's participation. When China came out and said, hey, we're going to export 3 million ton in 2025, we're not allowing this to go to India. Obviously, there's a lot of bad blood in the history between these two countries. Well, in the recent couple days, that has all of a sudden started to be rumored that might not be completely true. And it sounds like China is going to go ahead and at least allow 1 million ton to be flowing to India, which is exactly what the market needed. If it put all the onus of this tender on the rest of the world, it's going to create a situation where everybody in the world was short product, very, very tightly supplied, except for China, who is desperately looking for places to sell. So this should help even things out. So good work on the Indian part. Number two, kind of a shocker. The phosphate corn and actually the phosphate wheat ratios have broken their all-time highs. Now, the all-time high that we're using is the weekly average from 2008. It was late 2008, I think about October, November. But when we use that number and we look at the last, I would say more spot type number, July, August type shipment, that barge in the Gulf of Mexico, or I'm sorry, Gulf of America, whatever we're going to call it today, would trade at $820 a ton. We've seen 805 trade for September, but 820 is more of the prompt nearby shipment period that we have seen. We have also seen the December 2026 corn price continuing to fall. As of the overnights, it's actually down into the lower 440s. And so we're dealing with a situation where that ratio, it hasn't, destroyed it or anything, but it is finally above that level. So that 820, and you divide it this simply by the grain price, which again, 445 is the last one I had ran. I believe it was 443.5 overnight. Now all of a sudden we're dealing with a situation. Phosphate has never been more unaffordable than it is now. There is hope on the horizon, but unfortunately, guys, that horizon is years off, not months. And then the third thing, obviously, the fertilizer market, as much as the rest of the world market, is on high alert as it's watching tariffs. What is President Trump going to do to Russia on tariffs? And not only on Russia, what is he going to do to the rest of the world who continues to do business with Russia? This is probably the more scary point of this, because if the U.S. were to sit there and just completely block out Russia, I'm going to talk from a fertilizer perspective, yes, it's going to hurt. The urea flows are going to stop. The UAN flows are going to stop. Those types of things, even the potash is going to stop. But they can flow this stuff to the rest of the world. You start to shift some of these global trade flows, and suddenly we're back to level. Now, yes, the U.S. buyer is probably going to spend a little bit more money on it for that inefficient trade flow, but everything continues to go on down the road. However, we've seen Trump go after India here of late, talking about the fact that they're buying the oil from Russia and then exporting to the rest of the world. If Trump is serious about going after people who are doing business with Russia, like he has been with India, that is different. Now, all of a sudden, he is working to basically draw lines and say, either do business with us or do business with Russia. And if too much of the world does business with the U.S., all of a sudden, Russia's not going to have anywhere to go with their fertilizers. Now their exports start to slow. Now we've got a much, much worse situation than we're dealing with today. Now, of course, we could wake up in the 24, 48 hours and figure out that peace has been found between Russia and Ukraine. And we continue to point to that as a major watch point that could start to crater global nitrogen price ideas. However, it's an extremely low probability it feels today. But that's how quickly this thing continues to change, is with within an hour or within a day or two, this entire outlook could be completely different. So we have to keep our heads on a swivel and watch to see what's going on down the road. But like I said, it's been a very, very interesting, a very, very active summer. Some people lamenting the fact that they could really use a few weeks off, and you just cannot afford to do it. So we'll stay on top of what's going on out here. So we really appreciate your time. As always, if you get a chance, like and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you.